Well, that was disappointing, but Minnesota fell to Seattle 30-37. So Seahawks move up to 10-2, Vikings down to 8-4, and numbers: Wilson 21 of 31 for 240 yards, 2 touches, 1 pick. He was sacked twice for a loss of 14 yards and had a 98.8 quarterback rating. Then running the ball, running the ball. They did it very well and a lot. Excuse me. But Carson, 23 carries for 102 yards, 4.4 average, had a long of 25, had a touch to go with it. Rashad Penny, 15 for 74 yards, 4.9, and another touchdown to go with it. Travis Homer, 1 for 29 on the fake punt. Wilson, 4 for 13 and a long of 7, which honestly isn't that bad if we're talking about containing Russell Wilson to that. Like, I think if you said, no, he'll have under 15 yards, you'd be like, oh, cool, good job. So I'm not going to fault them for the 13 yards Russell got them for. But you cannot allow 43 carries for 218 yards with a 5.1 average and 2 scores. That's not very good. Can't be doing that. Receiving, they didn't do much throwing for the most part. Metcalf was their leading receiver with 75 yards, catching 6 of 7 targets. He didn't get a score. David Moore, 2 of 4 targets for 65 yards and the 160-yard touchdown. Jacob Hollister, 6 of 8 targets for 44 yards. Rashad Penny, 4 of 5 for 33 and a score. Josh Gordon caught his lone target for 10. Carson caught 1 of 2 targets for 7. Jerron Brown, 1 of 1 for 6. And Tyler Lockett was targeted 3 times, didn't get a single catch, which is a little surprising, but he didn't catch a ball. And on third down, they were 7 of 15 on third down, so that's 47%. They got their lone fourth down conversion. That being a fake punt. And +1 in the turnover margin. They were 3 of 6 in the red zone, so 50%. They were penalized once for 30 yards with the Diggs pass interference. And held the ball for a whopping 39 minutes and 45 seconds. Minnesota, on the other hand, Cousins, 22 of 38 for 276. 7.3 average, 2 touches, 1 pick, and no sacks, 87.2 rating. Dalvin Cook got hurt in the game, so 9 carries for 29 yards for 3.2 average and a score. Diggs, 1 for 27. Madison, 4 carries for 22 yards, 5.5 yards a carry there. So 14 carries for 78 yards for 5.6 average yards per attempt with the lone Dalvin Cook touchdown. Receiving, Treadwell was the leading receiver, and so far that's happened twice. We have lost both of those games now. Kansas City and now this one. He had, I'm not sure if it was the exact same. It was either the exact same or 68 yards in the Kansas City game. But he caught 1 of 2 for 58 yards. Madison, 4 of 5 for 51. Rudolph had 4 of 6 there on a score for 50 yards. CJ Ham caught both of his targets for 42. Dalvin Cook, 3 of 4 for 35. Diggs, 4 of 9 for 25 yards and only a 6.3 average, which is not good at all. Tyler Conklin, 2 of 2 for 8. Irv Smith, 1 of 3 for 6. And then you have Olabisi Johnson for 1 of 3 for 1, and more of the team stat stuff. 5 of 10 on third down, 50%. You're good with that for the most part, usually. 0 of 1 on fourth down, and that was a pretty crucial one. -1 in the turnover margin, 2 of 2 in the red zone, 30 yards of penalties on 3 flags, and only 20 minutes and 50 seconds on time of possession. So, now we actually dive into things now that we're done with like 4.5 minutes of numbers. Sorry for boring all of you. But Dalvin's health is kind of a top priority right now, just in general, because without him, this offense is going to have a tough sledding in general. So, you need to keep an eye on that. Hopefully, that was more of a precautionary thing where it's like, we're already down. We don't need to hurt you any more than you are. We're just going to try to come back without you, and if we do, that's great. If not, it happens. I almost kind of hoping that's what it is. And I'm not going to be taking the low hanging fruit here and just blaming Kirk Cousins on the Monday night thing and all that good stuff. I feel like that's a tad bit unnecessary. So I do want to kind of call out the play calling a little bit. It kind of felt like they were playing to not lose most of the game. And then even on that last drive, I feel like on that third down, that is a key place to run the draw just because a lot of people are kind of probably expecting you to throw. And you have 3 timeouts. You want to run down the clock a little bit because Russell Wilson, when given the chance, has been known to just kind of come up to these moments and win the game. So run it down a little bit. You get that, and it's a 4-point game at the time, remember. So I feel like, as opposed to putting Kirk in this position where it's like, you need to make this great throw here on 4th down. It's like, But at the same time, not sure why he's not throwing to Diggs on that 4th down. I feel like, in general, give your best guy a chance at the football in the key situation. That's probably something you should do. So I'm not saying Kirk is completely to blame here because I know a lot of people are going to do that because it's kind of the low-hanging fruit, like I said. But he certainly isn't everything to blame. Like, I think he played fine, maybe not great, but he was like, you can probably win with that kind of performance. Like, it wasn't horrible necessarily, if you catch my drift. Pass protection was kind of shoddy despite not being sacked. Obviously, Riley Reef leaving the game in for Rashad Hill doesn't help because Rashad Hill is not very good at football. But, yeah. I also think they left the run game a little too early. Once again, kind of going back to that crucial drive. You can run the ball. They didn't run at all. You can run the ball in that situation. It's fine. You can do that. It didn't really feel like they knew that. And like I said before, though, like I know a lot of people are going to blame Kirk, which, once again, he could have played better. I will acknowledge he could have played better. But I'm not going to go and say, oh, no, we lost this game because we just have Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is the problem of all problems. He doesn't belong. Like, I know a lot of people are going to go to that. It's like, oh, he can't win the big game. At the end of the day, he put up 30 points. That's actually kind of a lot in the NFL. So, it's hard for me to fault him. And 20 minutes and 15 seconds is unacceptable, as is the turnovers. You can't be turning the ball over like that. Even though the Kirk interception, like, once again, that's a tough catch by Diggs to make, which you can question the decision to throw it to Diggs, but at the end of the day, Diggs did have 2 hands on that football, which caliber receiver of Diggs kind there, he should come down with that football. And I know that's kind of a weird expectations, but once again, if we're going to have these expectations for the $28 million quarterback, the $16 million receiver needs to make those tough catches. And, yeah. Defensively, oh boy, do we have stuff to talk about here. All right, so I always feel like it's something with the defense in these bigger games, like these top games, like anything. Even going back to the 2017 team, you can say, well, in the playoffs, you can say, well, they let that comeback by the Saints happen for that miracle to happen, and then obviously there's 38-7, and even before that in the 2017 year, you kind of had a lot of lapses in that Carolina game where if you win that game, you're setting yourself up for, I think the 1 seed. So, it feels like every time there's a chance to really clamp down, this defense does not do that. And this time it was a lot of the running, mostly on the early downs, the entire first quarter and first half. It felt like they were averaging like 9 yards a carry. Like, they just weren't winning the early downs, which is kind of what created this time of possession gap, which is insane in this game. So, and I don't think the pass defense was actually too bad outside of the road stuff, which it's getting ridiculous. I I don't know at what point you say maybe we try Holton Hill, but it's really kind of been there, and I think that's becoming more and more clear. And he didn't stay out very long when he got hurt, but I was not that I want players to get hurt. I don't want that to get mixed up here, but I was kind of curious to see how it would fare without Xavier Rhodes in the game. And for the most part, it seemed tonight, like in the crucial down situations, um, like the one right before the fake punt, I don't know if anyone noticed, Xavier Rhodes was not in the game. They're taking him out on these crucial moments now. So I think we're kind of slowly getting there, even though Zimmer's kind of more stubborn with like, oh no, I made that player good. I can fix him. I don't think he should be doing that, but I feel like that's kind of how he is, and that's kind of a problem here. We couldn't keep him out of Melissa's. Once again, I feel like most of the problems were in the run game today, and a lot of that was the jumbo set with George Fant, as Booger McFarland liked to point out very often. But with the jumbo set in there, they could really get the edge on this defense that we haven't really seen up to this point, at least in the run game. We knew you might be able to get them in some lapses in the pass defense, which, once again, if you told most people prior to this game, it's like Russell will have, 250-ish yards, a touchdown, and an interception, and only run for, 13 yards. You might think, oh, we have a shot, but we didn't because they ran for 218. So it just felt like they couldn't keep him out of the third and manageable, which is why they were pretty close to 50% on it. And the third quarter was when it really opened up. Like, you do need to take advantage on offense. I know that's going back to the offensive things, but you do need to take advantage offensively. When you are up 17-10 on the road against a team like this, you need to take that advantage and go down and score. I don't care if it's a field goal or a touchdown. You do need to score some kind of points to make it at least a 2-score possession game at that point. And they didn't do that. Instead, we had a, what was it, like a 4-yard gain, and then Dalvin tripped, and then it looked at first glance like potentially a sack fumble kind of deal. But it turned out it was just an incomplete pass, and then you punt, and then on comes 17 points just by the Seahawks unanswered. And you can't be doing that if you're going to be in this playoff conversation. That's not something you can be doing. And but yeah, 39 minutes and 45 seconds of time of possession for Seattle, also very unacceptable. Just like the 20 minutes and 15 seconds of possession is for the offense. The defense being out there for 40 minutes is ridiculous, and you need to find a way to get off the field. They did not, and here we have it. And I remember saying in my preview video, their best chance of this is score over 30, force turnovers, do not turn the ball over. They were 2 of 3 and were very close to actually winning this. If they are 3 of 3, they probably win this football game, even without Thielen and without Dalvin Cook most of this game. So it's a team that's capable of winning these games. They just haven't, which is the problem. Which I really don't think this is necessarily a cancel the season type of loss, just because you're still 8-4, you're still very much in this. But I'm very tired of seeing this team kind of go through this whole deal. Like, I actually called the fake punt. I actually was, I leaned over to the person I was watching the game with, and I was like, this is a fake because Viking stuff. And he was like, nah. And then fake punt happened. And I was like, there you go. Happens all the time. This is what happens. They find a way to give you this false hope, and then they kind of do this. And they got the fumble later then, and I was like, oh, here we go again. Like I'm like preparing myself to do this, and it's like it's just a very Viking thing to happen, and I'm getting really, really tired of it. And I almost wonder, it's like we do need to have more expectations of this team, but it's hard because they haven't done anything for us to expect it. So, and it's weird because I still think this defense is actually the biggest problem of this team, at least for this season. Like the past couple of years, it was always like, oh, if we can get the offense just up there good enough, we can be really, really good. But it's the defense now, and I do know it's easy to blame Kirk and this offense, and it's like, well, they did have a drive to get this going, and they didn't get it, and I get that. I do get that. It's pretty easy to blame them in that. But at the same time, this is supposed to be a team driven by its defense. You put up 30 points against a very good team, and the thing that's supposed to be your calling card, your forte, fails again and again. And we've seen this even in other games. Like even last year, obviously, we've had games like this. Like I wouldn't call the Buffalo one a big game, but the defense didn't show up there. The Ram game last year was nowhere to be found, but the offense showed up that day. And it just kind of feels like either one side shows up and the other side doesn't. We haven't had that complete game yet, I don't think, where we have everything clicking. And we kind of need that to start pretty soon here. And yeah, and something to be concerned about, the past 4 games, if I were to tell you a Zimmer-led defense was allowing 27.5 points per game, would you believe me? Well, that is what has happened now. And just let that settle in a bit. Just let that settle in because that's not normal of this team. Like they kind of lost in a I guess almost a weird way for Viking logic because this wasn't the pass defense this time. This was the running, and the running really killed them. And speaking of that, I can guarantee you, based on how they responded to this, they are going to see that jumbo set again with that 6 offensive linemen. That is going to happen. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they adjust to it, especially after they put Ben Gideon on IR. Because Ben Gideon's a little better against the run than Eric Wilson is, even though Eric Wilson's better at running sideline to sideline. Wilson doesn't do as well when he's taking on the blocks. So that might have had somewhat of an effect on this. But at the same time, I feel like, well, where was Barr? Barr didn't really make anything. And Kendricks is more of a cover guy, and I feel like he did make some plays in coverage tonight. But it felt like some of these linebackers weren't there tonight to seal this edge at all. And that's a big problem because if teams can figure out, oh, we just need to put this offensive tackle right here and you can't do anything about that, we can just run up and down the field, you got serious problems. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how they deal with that because there's no way they don't see that again. I would like to see your comments down below, whether you agree, disagree, think I'm a moron, or maybe I'm actually got my head on straight. Whatever it may be. But yeah, comments down below. Liking, subscribing always helps. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.